You are standing alone in your room, repeating a sentence you don't understand, in a voice that isn't yours, for the 14th time. You sound ridiculous. You know you sound ridiculous. But the real answer is far stranger than that. This technique, the one that makes you feel like a parrot having an identity crisis, is one of the most effective language learning methods ever studied. And almost nobody tells you why it works. It's called shadowing. You listen to a native speaker and you repeat what they say almost instantly, copying their rhythm, their pitch, their exact pauses, while they're still talking. Not after. During. It feels like mimicry. It feels embarrassing. It feels like you're doing an impression of someone instead of learning their language. So why does something this strange actually rewire your brain? Because your brain doesn't learn language the way you think it does. Linguist Alexander Arguelles, who has studied and practiced language acquisition methods across more than 50 languages, popularized shadowing specifically because it bypasses the slow, conscious part of your brain that translates word by word. It forces you to use the same neural pathways a native speaker uses without thinking. Here's the part that sounds backwards. You are not supposed to understand every word while you're doing it. That feels wrong. Your whole life, learning has meant understanding first, then repeating. Shadowing flips that order completely. You repeat first. Comprehension catches up later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes the next day. Researchers studying speech production have found that fluent speech relies heavily on something called procedural memory, the same kind of memory that lets you ride a bike or type without looking at your hands. You don't think about how to ride a bike. Your body just does it. Shadowing trains your mouth, your tongue, your breath to produce a language the same way as muscle memory, not as a math problem you solve in real time. That's why shadowing feels less like studying and more like physical training. Because it is. Think about what happens when you try to translate in your head before speaking. There's a lag. A half-second delay where your brain searches for the right word, conjugates it, checks the grammar, and only then sends it to your mouth. Native speakers don't do that. Their mouths move before their conscious mind finishes the sentence. Shadowing is the only common technique that directly targets that gap. Not vocabulary, not grammar rules. The gap itself, the space between thinking and speaking. And here's the twist that makes the whole boring, repetitive grind worth it. The discomfort you feel while shadowing isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're doing the one thing flashcards and grammar books can't do for you. You are training your mouth to move in patterns it has genuinely never moved in before. Of course it feels strange. You are using muscles, vocal muscles, in combinations they've never tried. That awkwardness has a name in motor learning research too. It's called the acquisition phase, the clumsy stage every new physical skill goes through before it becomes automatic. Nobody looks graceful the first time they try a new sport. You don't expect to. But somehow, with language, we expect fluency to arrive without ever looking foolish first. Shadowing forces you through that foolish stage on purpose, in private, at your own pace, instead of in the middle of a real conversation where the stakes feel higher and the silence after a mistake stings more. So when you repeat that same 10 seconds of audio for the 40th time, and it somehow sounds worse than the 10th time, that's not failure either. That's your conscious brain interfering, trying to control something it was never meant to control. The goal isn't perfection on each repetition. The goal is enough repetition that your conscious brain finally steps back and lets the automatic system take over. This is also why shadowing rewards consistency over intensity. 10 minutes a day changes your mouth's muscle memory more than one exhausting hour once a week. The same way 10 minutes of daily stretching changes flexibility more than one brutal session. Your nervous system needs frequency, Not heroics. Maybe that explains the moment so many learners describe, the one where, out of nowhere, in an actual conversation, a sentence comes out of your mouth correctly, instantly, with no internal translation at all. You didn't plan it. You didn't have time to plan it. Your mouth simply already knew the shape of that sentence because you'd shadowed it, or something like it, dozens of times before, alone, in a room, sounding ridiculous, copying a stranger's voice that wasn't yours. You are still standing alone in your room. Same sentence. Same voice that isn't yours. Except now you understand exactly why that ridiculous, repetitive, slightly humiliating exercise is quietly B.